Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this first of hopefully many community town halls. I'm your host, John Bristow. I'm the community director for Octopus Deploy, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this live webinar. If you have a moment, you can feel free to let us know where you're joining us from in the chat window, which we have enabled. We've gone ahead and also enabled the Q&A, so if you have any questions, this is your opportunity to go ahead and ask them. And what I will do in order to set things up here, I will briefly just share my screen. So bear with me as I fumble my way through this live experience. So let's see what we got here. Share screen, entire screen. There we go. Awesome. So as I said before, this is a community town hall, which is basically your opportunity to talk to us live and in person. We have 5 people on today's webinar. Myself, as I said before, my name is John. We also have Ryan, Adam, James, and Michael, who will be joining us on this webinar. If you haven't had a chance to do so, feel free to give us some feedback. There's an emoji bar at the bottom of the screen, which you can let us know what you think about certain things. Give us some hearts, give us some thumbs up, etc. if you like certain features. And this is also your opportunity to ask questions. And so this is a great way to ask questions of the team, get answers to the things that many of you have been thinking about relative to Octopus. I'm sure you have questions, and let us know if you have any things that are pressing. This is part of a community that we have here at Octopus. If you haven't taken the time to do so, you can feel free to check out our community. We have a Slack channel, which is super vibrant and super participatory. And we also have a help channel as well. So feel free to get engaged and get involved in the community, which is great. I'd like to take this opportunity to also invite my fellow speakers here to the stage. So feel free to go ahead and join in on the conversation, guys, if you want to go ahead and join the stage. I can see we have some folks here. We've got folks from Ireland. We've got folks from Hamburg. Hi, Ryan. We've got folks from Dallas, Scotland. Hey, Ryan, you're in Dallas too.
I'm in Dallas too. We've got 2 of us so far.
Fantastic. So these are my co-hosts, Adam, Michael, and Ryan. Hello from everyone.
Hi, Rob.
Hey.
So we've got Ryan in the US, Adam in Scotland. Michael and I are both in Australia. So we are global. And this is live. This isn't recorded. So that's why Michael and I are looking a little tired. But it's about 4 a.m. for us. But we wanted to do this so badly. That's the effort we're willing to make for this. So to kick things off, I'll go ahead and I will go ahead and share my screen for another set of updates here. So if you haven't been aware, we've actually had a bunch of updates to our website. So this is the new website. If you haven't seen it, this is octopus.com. This is our new homepage. You guys like this page? It's pretty slick, I would assume, in your minds.
Yeah, and the docs also got an uplift too, along with that.
That's right. That's right. So our documentation has been uplifted. We're utilizing Astro as the baseline for all of our docs now. So we have a way of iterating on these really quickly. So it's really slick. We're really proud of it. You got some really nice call outs for the website, which is great. Feel free to check those out. As I mentioned before, we've got our community. You can go ahead and join the Slack channel if you want there. We've got our webinars and recordings all available. There's lots and lots of resources there. You'll find us at octopus.com/community. I'd also like to take this time to point out our roadmap. If you weren't aware, we actually have a roadmap that Michael and the rest of the product management team are maintaining. This is at roadmap.octopus.com. There you'll find a bunch of features that may have shipped recently, and you'll find these under our released tab. And you can see some of the ones that we'll mention in this webinar here. But also we have a list of ones that we're planning on shipping, as well as ones that are under consideration. The reason why I mention this is because as a community, this is your opportunity to give your feedback to folks like Michael and the others on the PM team about features that we're thinking about. And so if you take one of these features, you can vote whether or not you think this is a good feature for you. Let us know your feedback. You can also submit your own ideas as well if you're so inclined. Let us know about features that you think we should consider in the future. So then that's roadmap.octopus.com. So feel free to check that out. We've been blogging a lot. So in case you weren't aware, there's lots and lots of stuff that we've been writing about. This is available at octopus.com/blog. For example, we've got a bunch of features that we've been writing about recently. So Kit here wrote a blog post about sourcing Kubernetes manifest from Git. This is a feature that we're looking to feature. This is a feature that we're integrating within Octopus, where you can actually go ahead and deploy via the various built-in steps we have around Kubernetes. So the ability here to basically get the YAML of your deployments for Kubernetes clusters is available from a Git repository. This is something that we're adding a capability to. And so you can add that now going forward as part of Octopus. In addition to that, we've also added a new feature called step retries. This is really, really useful if you have a scenario where you have certain steps that are a bit problematic. So for example, you have network connections that are flaky, or you have file locks, etc. What this allows you to do is retry a step, and you have the chance of basically trying it 3 times over a 15-second delay. This is a great little feature that allows you to get a little bit more robustness within your deployments. And so that's a feature we've also added. Another feature that Jonathan here writes about is polling tentacles over standard HPS ports. So 443, the canonical sort of port for SSL TLS, this is now available for polling tentacles. So traditionally we would connect via 10943, and now we're actually leveraging 443 going forward. This should make it a lot easier for folks who are wanting to connect polling tentacles to Octopus, but they had basically a trouble convincing IT to open up ports in the firewall. Another thing we've added, Emily's talked about here, is our UI navigation uplift. So before, it would look something like this. Everyone knows what this looks like within the UI. But now we're kind of getting kind of a little bit of a UI mojo going with some new slick design work. So we've updated our navigation, and we've relocated some of the settings and some of the configuration as part of this change. So keep aware of that. And then in addition to that, we've also updated our tenants overview dashboard. So Ian here talks about how tenants are a wonderful feature, but sometimes if you have a lot of them, it's hard to manage. And in addition to that, if you have many tenants, it can be not as scalable and performant through the UI. So what we have now is a new dashboard that makes it super fast to iterate through them, as well as filter them and see where they apply across different projects. So again, that's a new feature we've added to Octopus. And then finally, this is a new blog post that we put out talking about Kubernetes status checks. So when you go to deploy to Kubernetes clusters, there's a whole bunch of things that happen relative to Kubernetes clusters, like pods and replica sets and network settings, and what are the status of those various parts and pieces as you're deploying to your clusters. And so now what we do is we give you an object status check as part of your deployment. So you'll see things light up as they get deployed to Kubernetes, which is really nice. This is a new feature that we've added. And this is blogged about on our website as well. Wrapping things up, just wanted to mention briefly, we have a community contribution to Backstage. Backstage is a solution, open source solution available from the folks over at Spotify. And this allows you to host your own developer portals. This is really useful for teams who are building out platforms and solutions going forward. And one of the plugins that's recently been published to their marketplace is one by Jonathan, who's a member of our team, or a member of our community rather, for Octopus Deploy. So now what you'll see in Backstage is there's a tab there for CI/CD, and Octopus Deploy can now be integrated as part of that experience. So if you want to see your deployments and you want to see how they work across various spaces and projects, you want to see those exposed through Backstage, this is now an available plugin for that experience. And then finally, just wrapping up, just wanted to mention this. We've just crossed 1 million download total for our Terraform provider. So hooray, you get the Dr. Evil pinky going when you're looking at this. So 1 million downloads of our Terraform provider. If you had told me this 2 years ago when I published this to the registry that we'd have over 1 million downloads, I wouldn't have believed you. So there you go. Some awesome stuff happening relative to the community. So that's great to see. And that's just a brief smattering of some of the things that we've been doing relative to the community. So thanks for that. And what I'd like to do now is briefly just turn it over to Adam, who's going to give us a demo about insights in Octopus. So take it away, Adam.
Yeah, thanks, John. I'll start by sharing my screen. Still getting used to session, so I'm just trying to find the button still. Big change.
If you want, we can take a question here. Steven's gone ahead and asked us a question. We'll just highlight this here. So as part of the Kubernetes status check, can we also get pod logs as well? That would be super useful for developers. Anyone want to take a stab at this, Michael? Oh, you're muted. Let's unmute you.
We're amateurs here at session still, aren't we?
There you go.
No, you can't get the pod logs today, but that's a great suggestion. Yeah, I think that's something we can look at.
Awesome. Thanks for the question, Stephen. And if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and pose those to the Q&A. All right, Adam, back to you. Sorry.
Yeah, get back on that now. There we go. So yes, I was asked to choose a feature to kind of really talk about something we released over the last 12 months. I chose Insights. Thumbs up if anyone's already started using this today to let us know. But Insights essentially is our out-of-box. Thanks for thumbs up, Ryan. I'm glad you're using it. Yeah, so out of the box kind of reporting on our dollar metrics. So for a quick introduction into dollar metrics, it's on our Octopus Deploy documentation page. The report of over 32,000 professionals around the world kind of measuring 4 key metrics of your DevOps projects. So we have lead time, deployment frequency, change failure rate, mean time to recovery. And Octopus has all of that data inside of Octopus. So we're now servicing that in some reports that you can custom build in Octopus. So I'll jump over to the dashboard and jump into the Insights tab. Yeah, we're already using the new toolbar at the top, which caught me by surprise. I went away to Australia for 3 weeks, and I came back, and there's a whole new design, so it took me by surprise. So I have a few reports in here. I've got some Kubernetes deployments, some store retail deployments for my tenants. What we're going to do is take a look at the main report today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this down by projects. So why is it good to measure the dollar metrics, and why is Insights beneficial to you? And how often do you want to compare what DevOps projects performing well and which aren't? One, to celebrate those successes of a successful DevOps project, and also to kind of take notes off the successful ones, where we can then implement those in some of the ones that maybe aren't kind of meeting objectives. And if I split this down by the project, so I mentioned we are kind of covering tempo, deployment lead time, stability, and mean time to recovery. I can jump in here and look at the deployment frequency and do a quick comparison of which projects in this particular part are doing the most deployments per week. Take a look at the lead time as well. Look at the stability into the deployment failure rate, and also the mean time to recovery. How long does it take you to successfully recover a failed deployment? We could drill down into those metrics as well, and we can also split these down by environment as well. There's a couple of options to split it by project group, environment, and environment group. I can see which environments are performing best. We had 40 deployments to development, 6 to production, and 20 to test, which kind of looks about right. I think you're always going to have more deployments to development. So this is really good data and a really good graph to show off. And then you can configure this report. So you can choose what projects you want this particular report to kind of highlight. You can add individual projects, which I've done here. You can even separate out the hotfix channels, the release candidate channels. Sometimes they do have a different path into production. And you can also create these environment groupings as well. So rather than having, let's say you've got 8 environments, you don't want all these different lines on your graph of every single environment. Let's create non-prod and production and make that a little bit easier to make that more visible to see in the dashboard. You can also add in tenants as well. So if you're deploying to tenants in Octopus, you can make those comparisons with tenants as well. But yeah, I find this really beneficial to just make those comparisons of every single DevOps project. I wish I had this when I was using Octopus, 3 or 4 years ago. We had 50, 60 projects, and I'd love to be able to say, this one is performing the best. Which for me, duration, we always had a big kind of push on we need to speed up this deployment. And there were some projects where we did really well, some we didn't, but we didn't have this comparison.
That's awesome. That's super insightful. And for folks who are curious about utilizing Insights and such, what are the sort of steps for them to get started?
Yeah, so So the actual insights across spaces is part of our enterprise licensing. So you can get in touch with us. If you're already on enterprise, you should have the insights tab available. If you're not on enterprise, we do have some insights on the professional license. So if I just jump into one of my projects, we do have some project level insights. So we can kind of go back and we can split these metrics down by environment again, but specifically for the project. They don't give us the overview across the space, but you still get those project level insights. But yeah, if you're already on enterprise, you should have this tab here, insights. If not, and you want to maybe trial enterprise, get in touch with somebody at Octopus, and we can look at that.
Fantastic. Thanks for the demo, Adam. That's great. That looks awesome.
No problem.
I'm a little worried about our failure rate is starting to climb up there.
No, I was just going to say I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah, this is purely demo.
This is not an insight on current projects at Octopus. This is clearly just for demo purposes. So there you go.
Yeah.
Hey John,
great.
just want to call out a couple of things in insights added in the latest release as well. There's now deployment duration graphs, which is really useful, and the ability to filter by channel, which Adam just showed, is brand new as well, and is really key for us internally too.
Yeah, so we use these reports obviously ourselves. We eat our own dog food a lot, and yeah, this is a wonderful feature that a lot of folks had asked for a long time, and we turned it on a relatively short time ago. I think over a year ago, or maybe a year and a half, and it's been growing ever since, and it's been really popular. So great to see.
Yeah, and it's one of those things as well. You know, the more you use this, the more you longer you have this feature enabled in Octopus, the more data we're going to generate, and the more you're going to be able to utilize that data. And one other key point is, which I get asked a lot when I kind of show this feature off, is can I get to this through the Octopus API, or is there any other way? Yes, you can. You can actually download the raw data as CSV. You can also pull it back via the API as well. So if you want to utilize this data in other systems, you can. So yeah, good to mention that, because I'm asked that on every single every time I have a customer call, I get asked that. So it'd be terrible if I missed that off.
That's great. Yeah, so we're obviously API first, and so that makes sense in a lot of ways. So awesome. So if you have any questions around insights or anything else around Octopus, feel free to leverage that Q&A pane. We'll take any questions midstream, etc. All good. Thanks a lot, Adam, for the demo. Really awesome stuff. Awesome. So up next, we've got Ryan, who's going to talk a little bit about GitHub Actions. Ryan, are you ready to go?
Yeah, let me get this screen going. It's a little bit of GitHub Actions, which I know is one of your favorite things within the Octopus world. And it's also a little bit of one of my favorite things from the Octopus world, which is the tenants feature. So I'm going to start on the tenants dashboard. And I'm going to talk about rolling out almost like a canary style rollout of a deployment across tenants. So I've got our new navigation bar. I also have our new tenants dashboard that we're looking at. I've got 13 production level tenants. They represent stores that I'm rolling out some point of sale software to. And you see they're each tagged with something like beta, stable, or alpha. So these are my release rings that I'm going to use for this deployment. And the tenant tags have a lot of varied uses within Octopus, and it's easy to kind of overlook what you can do with them. You can use them to tag shared infrastructure across your tenants. You can use them to modify your deployment process so that certain steps only run for certain tenants. You can use it for variable scoping, but you can also use it for controlling deployment groups. So if I look at this release 4076 right now, it's ready to go to production. I can deploy to all 13 of my tenants. Now, I don't necessarily want to deploy to all 13 at the same time, not today anyway, but I can group them by that release ring, and now I can deploy out to alpha as a group, and then I can deploy to beta as a group, and then finally stable as a group, as they all kind of move through that path. And that's nice if I want to come in and click those buttons, but what if I wanted to automate that? I want something to just roll out, maybe wait a period of time, maybe check some metrics or some type of logging tool to make sure that we're ready to move on, or even get a manual approval in between those phases. And I've crafted this through GitHub Actions. So this is where GitHub's going to come in, because beyond being, a very good CI tool, it's also kind of in the name, it's a good workflow automation tool. So I'm kind of using it for that today, which is I've created this phased rollout to stores workflow. So I'm not actually building anything. I am going to run it manually, which, may come in handy for some people, but you can also definitely have this run off of triggers. And then I'm going to go in and run that 4.076. I'm just going to tell it which deployment to run. I'm going to run this workflow and it should spin up quickly. But what it's going to do is kind of work through that flow that I talked about, deploy out to the alpha tenants, wait for them to complete, and then move on to the next one. So we can go ahead and jump in. I have learned this about GitHub Actions. If you have a lot of steps in your workflow, it does zoom way out. So you just have to zoom in a little bit to see those actions. But you can see there, it's already deployed that release out to my alpha stores, and it's actually created multiple jobs to wait for those deployments. If we kind of swap back to Octopus, we can see those are running there. As soon as those complete, we'll get the green check marks. It'll move on to this approval stage, which very candidly does nothing. It's just going to move on to the next level. But this is a way that we can easily automate moving through those rollout phases, those rollout rings for our tenants. How this kind of works is interesting, because I had to look up a feature for GitHub that I didn't know existed until I ran into this. Because it's the matrix strategy for a job.
Ah, yes. Very good for doing multiple tasks at once. There you go.
Right. So, and we can kind of see that in the list here, matrix, wait for alpha. So this is actually one job within the workflow, and I'll show that. And actually, I'll just go ahead and show it now, since my deployments are taking a little bit longer than expected. But I am using our provided GitHub Actions to actually do the deploy of the tenanted release. So I'm telling it what release to use through that input where I typed in the number. I'm going to production for my alpha release ring. And this built-in, or this provided GitHub action of deploy a tenanted release actually returns an array of those service tasks. It actually has the tenant name and the service task ID in it. And I make that an output of this job. And now I need to wait for that array. And if we scroll down to my wait for alpha, that's where this strategy comes in. So on a job, you can tell it, I want to run this as a matrix strategy and give it an array of values. So if there's 2 items in that array, you're going to get 2 tasks. If there's 5, 6, 10, 100, you're going to get that list built up. But that's essentially how I can say, hey, go deploy to a release ring that's going to have a variable number of tenants in it. And I want you to wait for all of those to finish before moving on to the next phase. What's really cool about this is from the GitHub and the Octopus standpoint, I don't really have to change my workflow. I don't have to change my process. If I want to move a tenant from alpha to beta or vice versa, I just change those tags. I don't change anything else. I add a new store to my production environment. I add it, I configure it, I add that tag. I don't change my GitHub action. I don't change my Octopus deployment.
Very nice. I especially like the emojis we added to our GitHub actions. Those are critical, I think.
You got to have something to make the work a little more fun, right?
That's right. And then underneath that, you'll see also the job summaries, which is a feature that was added to GitHub a little while back. And when it was added, we jumped right on that. We're like, yes, we have to have job summaries. So those are all built into our GitHub actions.
Yeah, and they show up on the side as well. So you can actually see for each one of those rounds that it goes through, when it has that job with the matrix strategy, it actually generates multiple entries depending on how many you have. So this will be the last one. We don't have to wait for it to finish, but this will be the last one that should queue up about 6 deployments. So again, my approval, not really doing anything, but you could add in any approval logic you would want into this workflow.
Yeah, another thing we did with our GitHub Actions from V1 to the V3 is we built them completely in JavaScript, and we saw a huge performance when we did that. So before we used to use the CLI, and then we went directly to the GitHub APIs and also our own APIs via JavaScript, and we saw anywhere from 40 to 60% improvement in performance That also is because we're utilizing the executions API that is now in Octopus. But if you're using V3 and you're using V latest of Octopus, you're going to see huge performance wins. Your deployments will go a lot faster.
Yeah, it's been really good. Like I've been diving into GitHub Actions a lot more. They're becoming pretty popular with the customers I talk to. So I'm always going in and trying to figure things out. And once I figured this out, I was like, this is neat. I need to show it to somebody. Because again, it uses one of my favorite things, which is the tenants feature.
Nice.
It's interesting, Ryan, too, your use of the tenants and the tenant tags to manage those rollout rings is exactly what we're moving to for our internal rollouts of Octopus Cloud as well. So good to see the approach works.
Yeah, I really like I really like this approach. Again, the tenant tags has like 4 or 5 different uses within Octopus, and I think this one may be one of the easier ones to overlook, because if you never go into filtering your dashboard, you may not necessarily know that ability is there. So it is kind of interesting to be able to do that. It's good for automating those deployments, but also just seeing maybe the status based on a specific group. Of course, I choose a tag that doesn't fit across the whole ones. Easy to kind of just like also from an informational standpoint, break that up.
Yeah, I think the release ring's a really nice use case.
Yeah, I like it. All right, awesome. I'll stop now.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. That was awesome. Just jumping back here, we have another question regarding insights. Has space level insights been stress tested with many thousands of projects? I would like to enable, but fearful of performance. It's understood. When you have lots and lots of entries, obviously it can take a bit of a performance hit when you're rendering them. I'm not saying that's the case for insights, but that's obviously a concern sometimes if you have many thousands of projects, for example. So any insights here that you want to share with Stephen?
We actually have an internal large performance test instance. We call it Armada internally. What I can do for you, Stephen, is I'll set up a replica, something similar to your environment, and try the space level insights and reach out and tell you exactly. Actually, I can probably show you a video of exactly how it performs.
Awesome. Thanks for that question. Much appreciated. All right. I see there are no more questions in the queue. That's fine. We'll just keep moving on. But if you do have any questions, feel free to just submit them there. We'll answer them either in the back channel or we'll answer them live on the webinar here. And finally, last but certainly not least, we'll turn it over to Michael here, who's going to talk to us a little bit about GitOps. So take it away, Michael.
All right. Let me just fumble around while I share my screen here.
This is us tap dancing on the webinar here. Here we go.
Absolutely.
Yep.
John made me promise not to say, "Can you see my screen?" on the presentation. So can everyone see my screen?
You're good.
So I'm just going to talk a little bit today about something that we hear a lot at the moment. So a really common question we get right now is, how does Octopus work with GitOps style workflows? And so something I think is worth saying first, what is GitOps? There's these really clear principles that describe what GitOps is. It should be declarative, versioned and immutable, pulled rather than pushed, and continuously reconciled, which is great. I think what we find when customers come to us with these questions is, although these principles are important, they're not asking about them in the abstract. It's not the principles for the sake of it. What we see in practice is that people are asking about a very specific implementation of it. And to be really specific, we're seeing Kubernetes, Argo, and Git is what we're talking about here. I think I'll call on the other folks on the panel as well, but to agree or disagree, but I'm not sure we see too many questions about GitOps at the moment outside of these contexts. Is that?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I think it's people choosing. Okay, I'm going to go to Kubernetes style deployments. I'm going to use Argo to do that. And it's not really, I think GitOps sometimes is even mentioned in that conversation. It's sometimes seen the kind of way to go. But yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah, it feels like the the direction here is people are choosing Kubernetes and almost getting GitOps as part of the package deal with Kubernetes. So yeah, let's have a look at a typical GitOps style workflow here. So here you can see we've got a user, they make a change to the code, it gets built by the CI server. what often happens is the CI server then writes back into the Git repo with the newly built container image tag. So they'll write that back into the Kubernetes manifest, for example, and then that gets picked up by Argo and rolled out to the Kubernetes cluster. Or alternatively, the user makes a direct change to the Kubernetes manifests in Git, and those get pulled by Argo into the Kubernetes cluster. These two repositories here, the application code and the infrastructure, they could be the same repository, or they might be two separate repos. And so essentially the question is, how does Octopus fit into this workflow? And to be honest, right now today, it's a little clumsy to fit Octopus into this. And so this is something that we're spending some time on at the moment. In our mind, a GitOps workflow with Octopus involved in it looks something more like this. And this is pretty familiar to anyone who's used Octopus previously. It's not anything new. You make a change to the code, it gets built by the CI server, that gets pushed to Octopus. And then Octopus takes care of, if you want to write that back into an infrastructure repository, excellent, or it rolls it out to the Kubernetes cluster. Whether that goes via Argo or not will be completely up to you. Argo brings a lot of nice features, not necessary either, but so that's how we see it looking. Because what we see today is people telling us that they're choosing Argo for deployment for these new projects, and it always feels a little funny to us because we never see it as Octopus versus Argo in these scenarios, any more than we see it as Octopus versus kubectl, or back in the Azure App Services world, Octopus versus Kudu. This is Octopus orchestrates these technologies, not competes against them. That's kind of the last mile of the deployment, if you like. So that's the problem. This is what we want to enable. So we're currently working through a roadmap of work to unlock this story, and it looks something a little like this. So there's a few fairly independent pieces that we think we have to unlock to unlock this overall story. The first is being able to source Kubernetes manifests directly from Git. That's that feature we've got a blog post on this at the moment that John showed earlier, and that's rolling out in some early release versions right now. We want to support some Kubernetes native templating options, specifically customize is what we're looking at the moment. That's in development currently. We want to be able to trigger events to happen in Octopus, so release creation or deployment based on events that happen in Git. So for example, when you make a commit in Git or create a branch in Git, we want to be able to take action in Octopus. And we also want to ideally unlock being able to do the same on pushes to container registries. So things like automatically create a release when you push an image to a registry. We want to support pulling secrets from Octopus. So today, this isn't something that ever happens. Octopus never lets secrets out through the API, if you like. For something like Argo to be able to pull secrets and configuration from Octopus and bring them into the cluster, we have to allow it to do that. So that's a little bit of a change in the model. And the final step of this is an Octopus Kubernetes agent. So how important this is, we'll figure out before we get there, but this would be, instead of Octopus doing push-based deployments into Kubernetes via the API, this would be an agent that runs inside Kubernetes, pulling things in, whether that's Argo directly or something wrapped around Argo, or an Octopus specific agent. This is still yet to be figured out. It's obviously the furthest down the road on this roadmap. So yeah, that's our rough kind of roadmap that we're working towards for this. The way we're thinking about it's very much GitOps with Octopus, not Octopus GitOps TM. We're not looking to build GitOps as a service here. We're looking to unlock the most valuable and best parts of GitOps to figure out which parts of these workflows make sense and what people want. So yeah, that's it for that little roadmap demo. If you have any questions or thoughts outside of today, please feel free to join us in the community Slack and let us know. I will stop sharing.
Oh, mute. Sorry. Talking, I'm like giving you praise and you can't even hear me. Thanks, Michael. That's awesome. So obviously, just to reiterate, if you have any feedback at all, hit us up on the community Slack. We have a bunch of channels there. We've trimmed down our channels on the community Slack recently. You can reach out to any one of us, and there's a number of channels that are good, strong candidates for that. I don't think we have a GitOps oriented one, but if you want, you can go ahead and contribute a question to social or
use any of the channels. They're all fine.
We'll find it. So great to see. Awesome. So are there any other questions from folks before we wrap up today's community town hall? Any feedback from the rest of the panel on some of the things that we've shown?
Yeah, I really like, I think today is the first time I'm seeing that last slide you had, Michael, of we're not looking to make Octopus GitOps. It's GitOps with Octopus. I really like that approach for something like this.
Yeah, I don't think it'll end up being GitOps as a service by Octopus. I don't think that's the way we'll look to do it. It doesn't, I don't think it makes as much sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I don't think we need to. I think, Michael, I had a few conversations with you when I was back in Australia. We were talking about this, and I thought it was best I actually, went and used Argo, used the GitOps model, and I think from having that experience of Argo last week, I think Octopus can really add value there. I've got some learning to do around, the whole promoting releases through environments with the GitOps model. I think Octopus really is going to add value there. I
think like the traditional kind of workflow that you see with Octopus, if you zoom out from GitOps just a tiny little bit, everything still looks exactly the same, right? The technologies involved are slightly different, but the overall goal is the same. And I think something else that gets lost sometimes in the GitOps discussions is that the vast majority of changes are still application code changes. They still get built by a CI server. It still pushes it to a container registry somewhere. So most changes aren't being initiated by a change to a Kubernetes manifest file by a human, which makes it look a lot like a traditional rollout of a code change.
Awesome. So we have a question here from Stephen. Will this session be shareable afterwards? Absolutely. You'll get an email with the recording link for that. So feel free to check that out when you get the email. Otherwise, we will also post directly to our YouTube channel. We'll probably cut it up that way. We also have a question here on our chat from Mike, who's asking, what is the status of runbooks as code? So I know this has been a long-standing request of runbooks being able to persist as OCL, etc.
Yeah, it's very, very much still on our radar. It's in the to-do list is the most accurate answer, I think.
If it helps, we recently enabled runbook support in our Terraform provider. So that's a sort of something that you can implement today if you're using Terraform, but definitely on our radar, as Michael points out, for sure.
Yeah, I would say
Ryan also. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say I'd call back to our roadmap. I believe it's under the consideration panel. So definitely go in and add a +1 and comment there as well to help prioritize those.
And you shared a link here, Ryan, to a tenant rollout YAML file.
Yeah. So that was the YAML file from the demo earlier.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Awesome. So, hey, thanks for joining me on this first community town hall, one of many. We're going to host these monthly at the end of the month, and we'll be updating our website a little bit later today with the next one. And if you're at all curious, you can go check out our website, which is available at octopus.com/webinar. There, you will see a page that looks like this, and you can go ahead and register for any webinars that are posted there. So this is the one that you're on right now, so don't worry, you're not lost. We've got one coming up with James talking about the art of balancing cloud and on-prem deployments. And if you have a chance, you might just catch, I don't know if this has been run yet, but we were co-hosting a webinar with Redgate today. Bob Walker is co-hosting this. But if you have a chance to check that out, feel free to run, don't walk over there. And then we also have our previous webinars that we've hosted as well. We will be posting our next community town hall here later today, so keep tabs on that. And as I mentioned before, you'll see an email hit your inbox shortly regarding the recording for this. Otherwise, you'll see it on our YouTube channel, which is /Octopus Deploy. On behalf of the other hosts, I'd like to thank you for joining us for our inaugural first Community Town Hall. Thanks a lot. We really appreciate it. And hope to catch you on the next one. And if you have any feedback at all, let us know on the community Slack. Any last parting words or final thoughts, folks?
The next Community Town Hall's in the Australian time zone, right, John? Everyone else has to get up at 4 a.m.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah,
4 a.m. That's right.
I'll fly over for some nice weather.
Yeah. And another question here that just came in. Can we submit questions in advance? Yes, absolutely. Just post them to the Slack channel. We'll set up, you can either post them to social, let us know there. That'd be a great way to let us know in advance. So on behalf of the rest of the crew, thanks for joining us for today's webinar. We really appreciate it. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, folks.